Good afternoon and welcome to the Ignite Hub. Thank you to our guest in person and our guest online. Today, we're very excited about this special event with one of our longstanding partners. We have an Ask Me Anything panel with these young professionals. These are civilian employees for the Navy labs in the DMV area, and they're going to be talking to us about what is that they do for the Navy and what motivates them to be part of the Navy and how they like it. So very excited to hear about from all of you. First of all, I would like to introduce our moderator and partner, Dr. John Barkium. So he went to school at St. Michael's College in Vermont, where he found a love for physics and challenging problems. After getting his degree, he worked on and received a PhD in physics, working on optics and material science. After postdoctoral research at the National Synchrotron Light Source at Brookhaven National Lab, Dr. Barkium started working for the Navy, researching radiation detection materials, and is now the director of University Engagement and the NSWC Carter Rock. I think that stands for Navy Surface Warfare Center, Carter Rock. So thank you so much. Let's welcome Dr. John Barkium, please.
Thank you, Eduardo. My name's John Barkium, as he said, and I'm here to welcome you online and in person to this chat, Ask Me Anything, with young employees working at Navy Research and Development Laboratories in the Washington, D.C. area. So I'm going to show only a few slides, sort of to introduce where we are and who are the people we do. But before I do that, I want to introduce our panelists for the day, and I'll start over here on the left here. So we have Miss Terrell Taylor. She's from the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Indian Head. So Terrell is the actual first full-time science and technology information officer for Indian Head Division. I'll pause here and notice you hear a lot of acronyms and fancy words that we use in the Navy. They're going to explain them, and I'm going to explain them on the slides. You don't have to write all this down. All of you who've signed up and are online will get a copy of these slides. So she's this Science and Technology Information Officer, very important position. First time also Foreign Disclosure Officer for working at Indian Head. So she has both of these roles, and to do that, you have to be a subject matter expert in a wide range of areas of the technologies, public, foreign agreements, information, and handling of information within the division. So Terrell is a graduate from Parkdale High School in Riverdale, Maryland, so she's local, and received her bachelor's in chemical engineering and master's in environmental engineering from North Carolina A&T State. And she started working at Indian Head in 2014 as an engineer with CAD's manufacturing department. Very different role. During that role, she oversaw the entire inventory, budget, production, and testing of multiple CAD products that were delivered to our partners in the DoD, the Air Force, and others. She was a detail lead for the technical director for 9 months, looking at higher level projects, member of senior leadership within Indian Head and warfare centers and NAVSEA. Very similar to what I did at one time. And during that, she became environmental program manager for Indian Head Safety Department. Once she tells you what Indian Head does, you see the slide, you'll know why they're so worried about safety. Outside of her work, she's a mentor to high school and current employees and a former long distance cross country runner. I didn't know that. And fascinated about cooking and traveling. So she'll tell you more about herself. Next, we have Dylan Desario. So he's from NSWC Carter Rock, same laboratory I'm from. And Dylan's local. He attended Wheaton High School right here in Silver Spring, Maryland, almost next to my home, graduating from the high school engineering program. And he attended Montgomery College, the campus that we're on, sitting on right now, as a dual enrollment student. That's one of the great programs we have here in Montgomery County, where the high school students can enroll and start taking their college classes. And then he went on to the University of Maryland in College Park, graduating with double major in mathematics and material science engineering. So Dylan was hired in 2022 as a contractor. So you guys should ask him about that because he didn't start as an employee. He started as a contractor supporting NSWC Carter Rock right here in Montgomery County as an engineer. In 2023, he became a full government employee working primarily on ball bearings and materials acoustics analysis within a division at Carter Rock. So now he's the engineering manager for anti-friction bearings, and his hobbies include watching and playing tennis and playing pickleball, which is cool. And next we have Crystal Stroud. So she's also from Carter Rock Division, and she graduated with a BS in electrical engineering from Frostburg State University, also in Maryland, out in Western Maryland. Has been an engineer here at Carter Rock in the signatures department since July of 2023. While getting her degree, she interned at her university's engineering department and also with Shentel Telecommunications, so a private industry experience. She was a robotics coach for First Robotics Organization, something else I've done. And her career has taken her to not only just Carter Rock here in Bethesda, but our remote locations called STAFAC and CFAC, which is a measurement facility on the West Coast, Alaska, and also on the East Coast. I'll show a slide on that to support underway acoustic trials. Something I'll tell you about that we're responsible for is the acoustic performance of submarines. She also works with the software, firmware, and hardware components for various NAVSEA projects related to that. And over here on my right, we have Mr. Dylan Desario, who, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. Leonardo, there we go. My eyes jumped to the wrong thing. Leo's an aerospace engineer, and he's with NSWC Dahlgren Division. Again, all these names and acronyms. They're located in Virginia, but they have a detachment, a group here that works right in Washington, D.C. on the site of the Naval Observatory, and that's where Leo is. And he's an aerospace engineer. So there's something very different that's different than some of the things in our Carter Rock lab. Responsible for conducting modeling, simulation, analysis of multiple degrees of freedom flight simulation for vehicles. He worked at the Aberdeen Proving Ground, an Army facility up in Northern Maryland, up 95. Rotation through Naval X, internships with the Army Corps of Engineers and NASA. So already you see very different organizations that experience something you can ask Leo about when he speaks. Leo graduated from Catholic University right here in the District of Columbia with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. So those are our four panelists, everybody. Let's congratulate them first. And now I'm going to give you just a few slides to give you guys some background. Some of you who attended our September 18th event may see the same slides again, but that's fine. You'll just get to learn them better. So next slide, please. So right off the bat, what I wanted, so we use acronyms here. DMV is an acronym we just use for the Maryland, DC, Virginia region here. And what do I mean by Navy civilian? So all of the panelists you see here, myself, are people who've been hired to work for the Navy Research, Development, and Engineering Laboratories. There's numerous of these across the nation. I'm not going to show a slide of all of them. And they all report to different commands within the Navy. So these acronyms, which there'll be no test on these acronyms, you don't need to remember them. You'll see something here on the lower left called NAVSEA, Naval Sea Warfare Systems Command, Naval Research Laboratory. We couldn't have somebody here from there. The Naval Air Systems Center. Again, we don't have somebody here, but the ones in blue you see are just who they report. Some of them are for the ships, some for the summer and the submarines, others related to the air operations. That's not critical. But in the map in the middle, you'll see Carter Rock. We're right here, just outside the Beltway in Bethesda, Maryland, part of Montgomery County on the border of Virginia. Those of you who drive to Tyson's Corner, you'll drive right by that. That's where we are. And I'll give you a slide on what we do. Next, kind of straight down there, is the Indian Head Division. Why are they called Indian Head Division? Because they're in Indian Head, Maryland. It's south of the Beltway along that area, and they do some very special, interesting work. And then finally, the Dahlgren Division, their headquarters is right across the Nice Bridge. It's on 301 if you know the area in Virginia. And they do some unique things because of their position there. And all of these places actually have smaller divisions and what's called detachments of people who work other places in the country. Carter Rock does that. Dahlgren does that. You heard Leo here actually doesn't work every day down there at that Virginia site. So that's an interesting thing we do here. So Navy civilians hired in, working for the benefit of the Navy in research, development, and supporting of systems of the Navy. Next slide, please. So I'm going to jump right in. So we have representatives from 3 of the labs here today. So the first one on the list happens to be NSWC Carderock here in Bethesda. Why is it first? Because I'm from that, and that's the one I know. So I'm not going to read all the words on here, but what we do really when the day is done is everything related to technologies that make our ships and submarines, smaller boats, what are called surface craft, makes them able to operate, be operational, function, be safe, have good materials, structures that we know work, that nobody can find them when we don't want them to find them, the signatures, the operations, the hydrodynamics. One of the things that if you know the areas, if you're from here, one of the things you'll see is we operate towing tanks and test facilities and some virtual test facilities, essentially computational fluid dynamics on computers to test and evaluate how the ships operate in oceans. The one picture you see here is one where we tow it through a very long tank to get the resistance, how it behaves in waves. There's other ones here, and some of these are listed on the right, where you test them in everything up to hurricane conditions and how they operate in the systems. So that's kind of our bread and butter. The areas we work in are ship design, design of the hull form, propulsors, which is a fancy word for how you're propelled. And again, the fluid dynamics on that, really us and key people are the only ones who do that in the world. The structural dynamics, structural engineering, what's called survivability, whether if something bad happens as they age, or unfortunately if something bad guys try to hit us, how those things survive. And then of course, importantly, maybe having the signatures and the silencing so that nobody finds us in the first place. So that's the Carderock division. Next slide. And now, so the Dahlgren division is, if you picture like a submarine or a ship, we're kind of logically divided, since not everybody can do everything, into subsystems. They focus around the radars, the weapons, the control systems, the everything to make that part of it go. So that's our sister division in Dahlgren. And you can see everything here that they do is related to a lot of systems analysis. And one of the things that's famous is the Aegis radar and weapon systems aboard the ships and integrating all of that in. Of course, they're going to be working very closely with the people at Carderock who design and work on the ships themselves. So again, that's a very large, and they're down there in Virginia. One of the reasons, again, I didn't have the slides on here. One of the things you will be able to get if you request it is we have a deeper set of slides for all these divisions on here. Is the unique thing is they can test some of these things down on the lower Potomac River on what's called a range that's below US 301 going out where the Potomac essentially opens up into the Chesapeake Bay. So again, very, very critical, important work for the nation. Next slide, please. NSWC Indian Head. So they're down in Indian Head and they do a unique thing for the Navy that nobody else does is they're responsible for propellants and explosives within the Navy. This is so unique that most companies don't want to do this. So the formulation, and when I say propellants, what that really means is if you see pictures of these missiles that are launched off ships or anything within that, that's a propellant. It's kind of blowing up, but in a controlled fashion that propels the device that you want to launch. So people have to understand that. They have to formulate it. It has to be safe. It has to be environmentally safe. It has to do what you want it to do when you want it to do it and at no other time. So that is, in a summary, is what Indian Head does. Very, very unique within that, and those experts support the Navy in that role. So those are the 3 ones, and that's really about all I wanted to say before we get into talking to these fascinating folks here. So let's go to the next slide. And I think So I am gonna leave you with this slide. We didn't have here. We also have, unfortunately, we didn't have a representative here. It's the Naval Air Warfare Center. So they do very much the same thing that we do here, but it's supporting of the air side. So everybody kind of knows what this is because Top Gun, it's the F-35s, the jets, the Ospreys, the planes that give us awareness of what's going on in the space, and the systems on the aircraft carriers that support that. They're down in southern Maryland, in a very beautiful part of the area, Patuxent River. Also up in Lakehurst, and they have a facility in Orlando, and that's a very fascinating. Let's go to the next slide. I can't remember now what I put on here. Contact information. My contact information is at the top of this slide, and this is my counterparts who do these type of engagements at the other slide. If you have any questions on that, you can always reach out to that. These links that are in these slides that you'll be sent go to the actually some of the YouTubes for some of these events. They'll also connect you through to some of the internship programs that are live now, but some of those close out pretty soon. So this is, again, you don't need to write this down. When you get the slide deck, the links will work. And so now I think that's I'm going to go one more slide. I'm not going to go to any more, and I'm not going to explain what this picture is, but I'm going to turn it right over and start talking to these panelists here. So I started at one. I'll bug you again. I'll start at this end. So Daryl, I'm gonna so we're gonna hand the mic around. Everyone who sees that will be handing the microphone because we only have the one microphone. So let me start out. So what I'm going to ask all of these panelists is, do you have, and I'm not sure how well you'll hear me. Did you have a first or aha moment when you knew you wanted to go into the career you are?
I have to be the one to start this aha moment in my current career. So a little bit of background on me. As John has read off, I've gotten my engineering degrees in chemical engineering and environmental engineering. And so when I first started at Indian Head, I said, I want to be an engineer that works with my hands. I want to make things. So they put me in the manufacturing department. There we worked on devices, cartridge actuated devices, AKA CADs, that go into the ejection seats of our fighter pilots so that when they pull the cord, that 100% of the time, it actually deploys, it removes the canopy, ejects our fighter pilots up to safety so that they can deploy safely down. I did that for about 3 years. And being in manufacturing, being in production, there are a lot of steps, there are a lot of checks and balances, and it was good, but it started being a little chaotic. And at that point, I felt like I have this environmental engineering master's degree. I want to see what opportunities are available for me to use that. So that's what kind of drove me over into working in our safety department as the environmental program manager. And so there, I was responsible for all the environmental compliance for Indian Head. So as Jonathan made clear, that Indian Head, what we do is unique. We are the Navy's only arsenal. We take everything from a napkin drawing all the way up to fleet ready, and we also do disposal as well. And so we call it the cradle to grave process for the Navy. With that comes its own unique responsibilities for environmental assets, when we are talking about our permits, when we're talking about our buildings to be utilized, any of our products that have to be disposed of. And doing that, then COVID happened and made it very clear and very difficult for me to oversee a program and I'm not physically present on location. And so with COVID and how long that took, I decided to speak with one of my mentors about what other opportunities are out there. That's when we kind of got me over into the scientific and technical information. And surprisingly, with an engineering background, I actually like it. It's basically, I'm responsible for all of Indian Head's technical data, intellectual properties being released from Indian Head's possessions. So think of when you've seen online, you've heard in the news, certain federal employees getting their hands slapped because they released information to people that they weren't supposed to. That for Indian Head, all of that information has to come through me. And with my background, my engineering background, that has actually helped me look at the technology that we work with, the technology that we are talking about releasing, and determining if the audience that is getting this information, are they appropriate? Do you have the proper need to know? Are the documents are marked properly? And it actually exposes me to way more of what Indian Head does and the relationships that Indian Head has built with other warfare centers, other government agencies, other foreign governments. And so it took me from just a little engineer working on a specific CAD to now I'm having a much bigger picture of how Indian Head fits into the whole scope of what the Navy does and what our defense does.
So regarding the question about when the first aha moment really was for working for the Navy, I remember my time in Maryland, and again, the 2020, the year COVID hit. We all went virtual that year, and fall of 2020, I had a class called Mechanical Properties of Materials, and there was actually a guest speaker from one of the warfare centers who had presented during that class. I didn't realize at that time, but later when I started working here, I had realized, oh, this is actually the guy who presented at my class in college. But essentially, yeah, he had talked about like a little slide deck on what he does with the Navy, and I essentially thought of, okay, like how could I see myself doing this for myself, and like just thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, I really could see myself doing something like that to help support the Navy. And especially in material science, I feel like it's very fragmented in terms of like there's no one straight path. You could really go almost like anywhere. So really like going the Navy route seems like the most clear to me, at least leaving college. And then once I got the interview, I thought back to that presentation that he gave back in 2020, and I was like, yeah, this sounds great. This sounds awesome. So that was my aha moment. Yeah.
My aha moment with my EE degree. So when I first went to college, it was actually to be a kindergarten teacher. And when I was in high school, I would always volunteer with the kiddos whenever I got off of school. And then my mom also worked for the school district as a special needs educator. And when I had gone to college, I took my first chemistry class and just fell head over heels. Pivoted, I wanted to go into chemical engineering until I took my first robotics class, and I was like, oof, this is too cool. Switched to EE, and I had first heard about Carderock my junior year of college. Carderock was actually at one of our university's career fairs. And when I heard about their mission and what they did, it really spoke to me because the Navy does hold a really special place with me and my family. My dad was in the Navy for over 23 years, and me and my brothers were all born on different naval bases around the world. And my husband is actually a Marine Corps veteran. So when I heard about NAVSEA and getting to use my passion for electrical engineering and pair it with something that's so near and dear to my heart, I just thought it was perfect. So I was able to get in, and I've been working for NAVSEA now for, I want to say about 15 months, and I love it. So.
Thank you. So for me personally, I feel like the aha moment was at least when I had my first interview, because some of these job descriptions, especially when you're applying through USA Jobs, are very nondescript. You are an engineer, you conduct analysis. There's a position in Washington, D.C., it's for the Navy. And so I was interested. I was looking for a new job at the time. I was getting married, preparing to move down to the district. And one of the things that happened was, as I was just walking out of work one day, we got an email, scheduled the interview, and talking, and then suddenly you get a yeah, sorry, but my then supervisor would be just was like, hey, do you have any interest in hypersonics at all? And I was like, as an aerospace engineer, generally the answer is, well, yeah, I do. So from there, it started a love for the career, the technical rigor, and all the interesting things that come with uh, the uh, the experience that you have at NAVSE.
Thanks. Next question. Maybe I'll just go the other direction, make your life easier. So I'm should do random. I got a random pick. So the next question is, do you have anyone who inspired you along the way? I think that's the easier question. Everybody has somebody. So I'm going to be sneaky and I'm just going to randomly. So
Yeah, I made eye contact with you. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Bigger question is who I'm going to pass it to next, right? So yeah, so biggest inspiration for me, I would say probably my mom. I know she really, I feel like, did a great job in raising me and my sister, and you know, she came here from India originally, and getting accustomed to like a new country is very difficult, and she did the best to provide for us and try to give us the opportunities to succeed. So I really, you know, I saw all she did, and to me, that was very inspiring for me to be my best, to succeed in education, and to, you know, keep going up. So I would say she's definitely my biggest inspiration. So yeah. Uh,
So for me, I would say my biggest inspiration is probably my college advisor. Um, she was a one of one in a dominant male area. And from the time that I had her, and she was just so, whatever concerns you had, it was an open door policy. She always made me feel seen. She always made me feel like I didn't have to come to her polished already. Like I already know what's going on, I already know who I am or where I want to be. And she allowed me to come with questions, but at the same time, be firm enough to push me to be better, firm enough to push me to think beyond what concern I came to her with. And from there, I am happy to say she is now the dean of the College of Engineering for my alma mater. She just got that title this year. And I'm like, there's nobody more deserving. A lot of my patents that I have in place are because she pushed me to put the paperwork in together for the patents. And so every time I'm faced with an issue at work, I just think to myself, or I even still reach out to her about, you know, how to navigate this particular situation, or just, what would Dr. Teasley say? Where would she push me to look at this situation with a new lens, or where to find tools to help me get to that solution? And I feel like throughout my career, I have found other mentors that have propelled me to be better, that have similar qualities as her as well. So I think it's been clear that she has been a very important piece of my fabric.
All right. So I feel like uh, my biggest influence at the start was actually my first supervisor at Aberdeen Proving Grounds. She didn't really stick around for a while. I had this pattern where I'd get hired on by a supervisor, and the said supervisor would step down, and someone else would come in. But she really helped get the ball rolling with, I guess, expectations. What you should, not only what should be expected of you, but what you should also expect of your job and the people around you. And she really nailed in the idea that one of the things you have to do is the government is sometimes big and cumbersome, and you have to advocate for yourself in whatever roles you find yourself. And that's one of the things that really sticks with me is that, when there are deadlines or when there are things that you need to get done, you should always be a little more proactive, try to be the squeaky wheel in some sense that gets the grease.
I would say my biggest inspiration is definitely my dad. Sorry, Mom. So my dad always did what it took to be there, no matter what. And he really taught me what it's like and what it looks like to be a multifaceted person. He dedicated his life to the Navy, but at the same time, I saw him dedicate just as much of himself to my mom and our family. And he was always the biggest advocate for my education, staying up till all hours of the night, helping me with my homework, and teaching himself how to do algebra, even though he never went to college, just trying to help me through my classes, even though he was up at 3:30 in the morning at PT and, staying up until all hours of the night just to help me out. And with that, it's so cool to be able to work for the Navy now and for me to tell him about all my adventures. And when I was growing up, he was telling me all about his, and now we compare stories. So going through college, and when I did hear about NAVSEA my junior and senior year, I was so looking forward to working for the Navy just because I kept thinking like, oh, I can't wait to top all my dad's stories. It's gonna be awesome. So yeah.
Thanks, Crystal. I will want to add a couple other things in here. I think one of the things I see here is that people find what's called mentorship, people you want to emulate, people you want to bounce ideas off of, and how you want to just improve yourself in your life and career in all unexpected places and all throughout what you're doing, whether you come to work for us or as you're moving on your career in your college. Everyone here is working on their education. There's times where you need to reach out to the right people and find who that is, and those people are receptive to help you get through some of the hurdles in your education. I think we can all say that we've had to do that. So that's something you've got to always keep in mind and don't be shy about is, finding those right people to find out to help yourself along the way. And those people do want to help you. So next question, and they get to me a little more interesting as we move along here. So my next question, are you surprised in any way in the job or career where you are now or a previous part of your career, but focusing on your career, what surprises you the most? So I'll just start back here.
So remember how earlier I said that I wanted to be an engineer to work with my hands? I don't work with my hands anymore. And I never thought of myself as being that type of person. When I used to do the detail under my technical director, this is me coming straight out of manufacturing. So I told him, I'm used to an environment that's pretty much chaos. I like chaos because it keeps the day fresh. It keeps the day fast. My stress level doesn't like it, but the best I work is under chaotic conditions. It's such an oxymoron. And I told the technical director, if you want me to do this detail, I can't sit in a computer 24/7, 365. I'm going to talk bad about you. My current job, I sit at a desk in front of a computer 365. And I enjoy it surprisingly. And I think it shocked me because for years I thought I knew myself to know where I wanted my career to go. And the whole reason I even decided to take the detail was because I wanted to see what was available for me. What does the Navy have to offer? You think Navy and your brain just goes, it's so many different ways it can go. And to see that the current job of the Scientific and Technical Information Officer, aka STINFO, or the Foreign Disclosure Officer was even available to me at Indian Head with my background, and that I have a program that I am 100% in charge of. I have full control over how the program is implemented, how the workforce is trained on it, how I get to present my findings of what we are releasing, all different other kinds of metrics at whatever I choose. Oh, you guys gave me way too much power. What? Who did me? Yeah. And to see how I can grow this program from something that was very small, and for me and my background to be able to increase it and grow it and make it a more stable program, and to share my knowledge with the other warfare centers is just, I'm really shocked that I'm here right now.
Yeah, I would say definitely I'm very surprised that I'm in this role and working this position now. I guess rewinding a little bit. So after I graduated from Maryland in 2021, I'm sure everybody knows the pandemic effects were still there, and coming out of college where a lot of the teaching was virtual, like a lot of the labs were virtual, and you didn't really get a lot of hands-on. Especially, it was tough to find a job. And before I started as a contractor supporting the Navy, my last job before that was actually essentially as a bar back in a restaurant in downtown Bethesda. And I just remember not liking that job very much, I'll just say. But yeah, this was probably spring of 2022. And I remember I got the job just a couple months working in this bar back job. So I guess for me, the most surprising part was just in March 2022 being in this bar back job at a restaurant, and then by December 2023 I'm taking over for the Bearings program, for the Navy lab. It was just a huge come up that year and a half or so. So to me, that's what really surprised me the most. Yeah, and great opportunity. I'm always appreciative for it.
Congratulations, that's awesome. So I've just worked for the Navy for, I want to say about 15 months now, and that's been the extent of my electrical engineering career. And the thing that has surprised me the most, hands down, is the environment, the learning environment that Carderock breeds for us. There's never a shortage of somebody who's willing to answer questions or like take the time to stop and explain something to me. The amount of times that classes come up where my supervisor's like, hey, I think you'd really benefit from this. So just the amount of learning opportunities that there are, and that they're so willing for people to participate in, I'm super surprised by it. And it's also makes me more confident and less shy to ask questions, and not be afraid to ask a stupid question, because I know that the people around me just want to support me in my education and for me to go further in my career. So
Yeah, I'm just going to speak to the learning environment really quick, because they really do encourage you to step out, to either engage in these programs, take on additional trainings, further your education. Because in some of these instances, and to use a quote that's often thrown around in the office, is those first few months, sometimes you really do feel like you're trying to drink water from a fire hose. And it's really incredible the how willing everyone is to help get you up and running and to really train you. But for me, also, the most surprising thing I think was how my career trajectory turned out, because I also graduated in 2021. So it just happened that during my internships, both of them were with the Army Corps of Engineers in New York. And I happened to swear the oath of civil service twice, which so when I was going to a lot of career fairs and stuff, while I wasn't very popular with contractors at the time, and we were doing a lot of virtual career fairs, a lot of government orgs started reaching out, which really surprised me at the time. And so I just never anticipated the sudden government trajectory that I got kind of catapulted onto from this very early experience with government.
Thanks, Leo. So next on my question, I kind of put them in this order on purpose because so it's a very simple question, but quite often has a long answer. What are some of your biggest challenges at work? So maybe these are things that are, well, they're challenges. There's no other way to say that. So I'm going to start right back with you, Leo.
Yeah. Thinking about challenges. I'm just coming off of rotation, so it's trying to get back into the mindset really. But one of the things that, at least one of the challenges I've noticed at work is even though my office tends to be is pretty small, we have is trying to ensure all the lines of communication are open, where we all know what we need to accomplish and how to get it done, but sometimes the issue we have is just how everything fits into the big picture. So how we might be working on gizmo A, but we don't know how that fits into widgets properly, and just trying to ensure that we all do, so then we can better align and get the mission accomplished.
I agree with Leo that one of my biggest challenges does have to do with communication. So, for example, I work and have a little part in several projects. And with that, I see that, say, Project A could have an answer that helps with Project C. And I work with people from the East Coast, Washington, and then people from Florida, and realizing that sometimes this answer that I found could really help, one of my coworkers in Florida, and not realizing that, maybe she was looking for a solution that I completely had the answer for weeks now, and vice versa. So I would say just trying to keep everyone in the loop. That way everyone could benefit from what we're learning and what we're finding out.
I would say one of the biggest challenges is also like time management as a whole, and more specifically, sometimes whoever you're working for or working under will tell you, okay, like I want this task like expedited or prioritized, and then maybe like 2 days later they'll come back and ask for, hey, I want this second task also expedited, prioritized. You're like, which one do I prioritize of the two? So you might run into that where you really have to juggle multiple things at the same time. I feel like also a lot of the times you might have different like hats you need to wear. You step your foot into the technical side, or like you're working maybe a little bit with contracting, purchasing. So you kind of have to be well versed in like a lot of different areas, I feel like, or know who to contact and work in many different dimensions. Like I feel like at least where I work, I don't really see people being one dimensional. You have to be really well versed in these different areas to get your job done, to get your assignments done in the timely manner. So
I would say for me, well, time management is one of them. For me, it's delegation. Since I'm office of me, I receive a task, my brain immediately says I have to do said task. And it's not a second nature for me to reach out for help. Not saying that help is not there. It's just trying to figure out what does help look like. And in my mind, I'll tell myself, well, this is not worth their time. I can do it. I know I can do it. And then other tasks will start piling up. And then it becomes the time management of what to prioritize and what can I do realistically versus what can I do like a superwoman. And so I do have leadership that are constantly like, what help do you need? And they are forthcoming with making sure that I have all the tools that I need to succeed. It's just on me to recognize when I do need help so that I can delegate and to make sure that that delegation is worthwhile and that I follow back up. That's just things that when the training comes out or there's a new tool set or a new person comes to the office, I try to do my part to reach out so I can do better at my delegation.
Thanks, Terrell. Before I get to the next question, I kind of want to summarize what I saw here from people here is we all work for a large, complex organization, but when it may be a small, local, great people that you work with, the same people every day. So communication is a very strong skill. A lot of these, you guys in school, I use all, it seems like all the tools I learned in school, I just have a different emphasis on. And then other skills that I didn't learn in school, what I heard was communication, time management, understanding you apply your expertise in what you do to do work, but working with a team and understanding what you should let go of or share or find a more efficient way, because we all want to get the job done within that. And that's some of the things you learn in school, but some of the things you don't quite learn in school. So you never stop learning all of these aspects of your job within that. And I think these apply across the board as you go out into your career. So what I'm hearing from these folks really much fits within that. So as these challenges of communication, delegation, understanding, shifting. One of the great things I'll say here before my next question, which I hope you get from these slides, is there's well appreciated ability to switch emphasis or jobs or different things within that. We certainly encourage and need people to get stronger technical expertise and become technical experts. With Indian Head here, we have the technical experts in the chemistry and the application and understanding of these explosives and propellants in the world, period. We need those people. But we also have people who do that and then branch out into other things, management, program management, so you can hop careers. Same thing at Dahlgren within that. It's such a complicated system. We have here aero engineers and there's hydro engineers and systems engineering. So it's very appreciated that and understanding that you can shift within your career, but you have to proactively look for yourself. And Carderock, where I'm more familiar, is very much within that. So you have that career of management or program management or engineering, and you kind of can move within that. So that's a very important. But there's challenges. There's challenges with that model too. So we all want to try to pull together and make that happen. Again, your mentorship that you can reach out to. So my next question is, this is usually one of the easier questions. What brings you satisfaction every week? And I said week because every day, just like when you're going to school, some days are better than others, some days are worse than others. We all know. But sort of on a weekly basis, what brings you satisfaction every week? And I'll start. I don't think I've started. There's only 4 of you. I started every week.
So okay. So since I've started, I've been pretty lucky that I get to travel about 1 week a month, sometimes up to 2 weeks. So with that, there's always another trip coming up. I thoroughly enjoy travel. So what gives me satisfaction every week currently with my career is that I'm just getting to see the world, and it's so interesting. There's always something new, and with that, it keeps everything really exciting.
For me, I also love the travel. It's great to see all the different expertise that's just found throughout the United States at various facilities and doing different things. But one of the things I really like is I'm an analyst, so it's a lot of data. And it's just incredible how fast the tools we have for technology, you can just go through the data. And then just using the data and looking at things, piecing together the context clues to make a conclusion. And in some cases too, your theories will change, like, oh, this says this, that X says Y. Well, and then the next week you say, well, actually, Y was wrong. Maybe it's Z. And you just keep going and you're just constantly essentially putting a puzzle together. And it's a really great thing to see.
I would say the thing I look forward to, at least on the work front, I really do appreciate my branch, which is my branch and the people that I work with more so. I think when you go into a career, when you go into a job, you interview for it, you know what you're looking for on a technical side, what you want to do maybe, but you really don't know how the environment's going to be. You don't know how the interactions are going to be on a day-to-day basis. You only really get that when you start working there, right? So I feel really lucky to have a great branch, great coworkers that I work with, that I really just enjoy, being in this branch. And I know we all look out for each other. Sometimes we need some help with other things. Like we step away from our own projects, help each other out where we need it. And I think that camaraderie is really outstanding. And I think when I come to work on Monday, what really gets me motivated is just catching up with my coworkers and really just, okay, how can we approach the week ahead? And we really, just caring about each other, not just for the work you do, but for, just to care about everybody. So.
I will piggyback off of that. I was thinking the same thing. At Indian Head, we are a family of, you have folks that are local to Charles County, local to the Indian Head base, and then you have folks like me that have came in after college, and because we all share the same mission, we all just mesh together. A lot of us, we still hang out with each other outside of work. We're a part of weddings and birthday parties, and somebody decided to buy a bushel of crabs. Hey, everybody, come on down. We're going to a baseball game. Hey, everybody, meet up at this house, whatever. But I would definitely say my coworkers, just the Indian Head family, it really we already do interesting work that nobody else in the world can do, but also what we experience, it only makes sense for us. Between that and in my day-to-day duties, since my particular role is a service to the Warfare Center, that all the questions that come my way, that I'm able to find a solution to the questions, whether I knew it off bat or I did the research and reached out and found other subject matter experts that can give me that solution for the question that I might have across my desk. To be able to get a solution for everything that comes across my desk, if I can finish that inbox by the end of the week, I had a good week.
Thanks, Terrell. So this is the end of the prepared questions. I have more questions that I thought of, so I can keep going, but this might be a good time to see if there's some questions in the chat.
First of all, thank you so much to all of you for those incredible answers, very candid, very honest. So thank you so much. And yes, I do have a couple of questions, but we're going to open it for our friends that are joining us online. And actually, Urani has this question, not to anybody in specific, but Urani asked, were there many filters to pass in order to get the job? I guess what they mean is how many hoops you had to jump, and I guess was it really difficult to get this job?
Who wants to?
I think that it could be difficult to get the job because I feel as if the job market is always pretty competitive, right? But if you do the legwork beforehand, you get some internships, volunteer locally, get good grades at school. I think that you make yourself a really good candidate by just doing the legwork before then, and then also doing the legwork with the interview process. I found that the interviewing process and the hiring process came so easy because I did so much work leading up to that. When I was telling you guys earlier that my dad is one of my biggest inspirations, he was doing months of interview prep work with me. And I'm talking months. Every week, every day, I was doing something. Sometimes he would just text me a question and I, on the spot, would answer him. Same thing goes with my husband. It was, we had a household where out of nowhere, we'd be in the middle of dinner and he'd be like, why do you want this job? And for electrical engineering, and this is the background to it. How would you answer this question? So just doing the legwork is super important. And if you do that, I think the hiring process and the filtering you'll have less filtering if you do that legwork.
I guess there's also just to talk about it too. There's the whole background check process that we have to go through, and sometimes that can be a little extensive. And in some cases too, it's and in my end too, it was like an experience to learn more about my family because my mother came from Vietnam, so she didn't truly know her birthplace until then. But yeah, there are a few hurdles to jump through in terms of like doing a background check, first, second interview, and in some cases a drug test too. So
As the senior person on here, since this always comes up in people's minds, it is citizens that we're hiring. There is a background and check within that, of which there is for many companies. This is not something that's unique to the Navy, that obviously you're working for the Department of Defense, and we have to, protect our information and keep our priorities. Other than being honest, working toward that, there's not much more to say. There is another set of slides that has more details on how to reach out to the laboratories, the internships, how to apply for some of the jobs. And I think we can see to it that the Ignite Hub sends that along with this a little more deeper. So we welcome those questions, but I want to say that we can get that information to you also.
Thank you. Urani again, she says thank you. And I guess a follow-up question, did it take a long time to hear from the place you are currently working? After you pass all these hurdles, how long did it took? Did it took a long time before you heard from them you're hired or we're interested in you?
I would say, I guess to quantitatively answer that, I remember it taking like roughly like better part of like 2 months for me to hear back. Obviously there's a lot of involvement with the background information and then the onboarding process. But yeah, I would say, yeah, like better part of 2 months for me to hear back from them. So
I applied for Indian Head 4 times. And they finally called me. Let's see here. I think the first time I applied was maybe my sophomore year in college. They finally reached back out to me after I've already gotten my master's and was already working for another company. And at that point, I was like, I already have a job. You guys didn't want me. But my boss, he insisted that I go to interview. And I want to say after I interviewed, they had some all-day interview thing. It was something very different. I have no idea if they still do this. But after the whole all-day interview, multiple rounds of interviews with different hiring managers, that I think that was around March, April timeframe. I then started July. So they might have gotten back to me within a month or two. Gone through the background checks, security clearances, drug tests, and things, and then got me on board by July. So that might be too long of a time frame for some. It might be very fast given the government.
I think they still do the all-day hiring interview event. So I went to one my first semester of my senior year in college. So I had applied I just submitted my resume on, is it usajobs.gov or something like that? So you can just put your resume out there without actually putting in for any specific job. So I just did that preemptively as I was transitioning from my junior to senior year. Right when I started my senior year of college, I was contacted by a recruiter that let me know about this all-day hiring event. And so what happens at these events is that all the different codes at Carter Rock review everyone's resumes. And if they like your resume, they'll schedule an interview with you, right? So that day I had an interview with 4 different codes, and that code then has 1 week to decide whether or not they're going to give you an offer. And then you then have, I want to say, it was a very short time, maybe a week, to get back to them on whether or not you would like to accept that offer. And then after that started the background process. So you would officially accept the offer. Then the background process for me probably took, I want to say, a good part of maybe 3 months. And then after that, once I graduated from college, I started a month later.
Great. So for having worked career fairs from both sides, but mostly for the Army, it was there's been a bigger emphasis on, especially these career fairs, to try to put out offers the same day in some cases. And that's one of the newer things that they're introducing. They're trying to try to reduce the timeline because, yeah, for me, it also took. So for me, it took about a month for this position for me to hear back that I got it. Paperwork's in the way. It took 2 weeks after for the paperwork to show up, but then it took 3 months for HR to have all the paperwork ready and for me to arrange my final transfer and my transfer date. So yeah, it's a bit of experience with the lead time, having the background checks and a lot of stuff, trying to get a lot of hens in a row. But yeah.
Also, if anybody's concerned about the wait time for a job with DoD or with NAVSEA, if you're eligible, sign up, apply for any of our internships or fellowships that have employment directly after you finish, directly after you graduate, because you'll already be in the system. Now just move your paperwork over from being a student employee to a full-time employee. That also greatly reduces the wait time if you are truly interested in working for a position in NAVSEA.
Yeah. Also, I believe NAVSEA runs a yellow account where you can just upload your resume and then it'll store it in a database. But I believe it also enrolls you in a talents, a talent email database too, because they should send you emails about events and stuff, because I remember putting myself in that. And it's the same for a few other organizations that, just to keep an eye out too, just not saying USA Jobs is a bad website, but there are also other websites that organizations are utilizing too.
Well, thank you. Thank you to you all. Urani actually says thank you very much for sharing with us. I do have a couple of questions, one for you, John, and a couple for the panelists. So first of all, I am super excited about hearing these young people. The people who know me, I've never made a secret that I'm living vicariously to you. All of you represent engineering. I wanted to be an engineer, but for other reasons, I ended up being in IT, and I love it. But I am an engineer at heart. Now, with that said, what other type of careers are offered at the Navy labs in the area? I know that it's heavily a research center, and obviously this is the majority of jobs as a representation, but I'm sure that there are other job opportunities and possibilities for other areas. Can you tell us about that, John?
Yes, certainly. In fact, thank you, Eduardo, because that's something that we emphasize and we really didn't as much today as I would like to. One of the things that first comes to my mind is people with business degrees, business experience that primarily support the acquisition and management side of our work. At all of our laboratories, one of the key things we do, I mentioned that we do research, development, engineering, we support the fleet. But in our organization and in our country, key players on this are companies, international companies, domestic companies that make the devices, the systems, the support that we use. The strength of this country is in our companies and in our people, and that involves contracts and management. For some people, that sounds exciting. For some people, it doesn't sound exciting. But if you're working on a technical business degree, sometimes it's mathematics, analysis in areas. That's a talent that we need. And it's a talent that's highly desired. It's desired in, I'll be very honest, it's desired in the corporate world and it's desired in the government world. We snap up those people and we have a hard time keeping them. So that's something to always, and those jobs are also listed on here. We focused on the engineering jobs with the folks that we have here today, but that's not communications, corporate communications, public affairs, safety, everything within that area. There's people's that. So those are on the respective websites, on the respective USA jobs. And that's one that I very much see. Panelists, do you want to add anything to that? Or is that kind of where you were thinking? I'm handing the microphone over to Terrell from Indian Head.
As a NAVSEA recruiter, I would say for NAVSEA, since we are supporting the fleet, we literally can find a role for anybody with any background. You just have to be, we just have to train you up. So at Indian Head, yes, all STEM majors, we definitely look to those first. As John has mentioned about our business majors, we do have need for those. But even for example, at Indian Head, since we do a lot of manufacturing, machinists, electricians, welders, we also have a chemical, biological, and radiological defense division. So we're looking at your biologists, your other folks that are just in the labs, we also deal with finances. So we also have a big, big, big program going on right now at Indian Head, because Indian Head is 136 years old, and parts of the base, it looks 136 years old. And so we have this major revitalization, this energetics comprehensive modernization plan is major, major, major thing where we're looking at all of our old facilities and either determining if we have to clean it up because of whatever processes were in it before. There's certain sciences that goes behind cleaning up old explosives and propellants, and then modernizing the building to repurpose it for any of these new programs that we are in process of bringing to Indian Head. You still need your tech guys. You still need your IT. I have a whole entire group that's dedicated to learning how can we utilize AI in the Navy. Some folks have brought the opportunity of using AI for my role, and I'm not against it. There's just certain questions with AI that needs to be fully fleshed out for the Navy to feel fully comfortable utilizing it. If you're willing to learn, literally any background can find a home somewhere within NAVSEA.
Do we have more questions?
So thank you so much again. And I appreciate all your suggestions when you were giving to our audience specifically about how you can start Navy. You get great suggestions, the internship path, because you're already in there is a lot easier. But I would like to ask Dylan, how was your experience from being a contractor to being a direct hire with the Navy? Maybe some of our audience may be interested in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the job search was very difficult. As I said previously, I know I definitely relied on your like LinkedIn's for jobs. I know Indeed was actually how I got my contracting job. So I found the contractor role through there. and I mean, definitely I got job interviews, like several from Indeed specifically, until I finally got the contracting one, and then we did the in-person interview at Carter Rock essentially. Um, and I believe you'd asked about my conversion to government, correct? Yeah. So yeah, I was working with the current branch which I work with now, which is the non-metallics and low observables branch. And I started there as a contractor in July of 2022. And I think in our branch, at least, there was definitely a need for someone to fill a managerial role, as there was, so you have retirees like headed out, you need people to fill those positions. And I think overall they were just looking for someone who has the mindset, who's willing to do the work, less so about the background, less so about the degree, but just, okay, can you show up? Are you dependable? Can you do the work? And I think they saw that in me, they liked that in me. So the branch I was at did offer me the role directly. And I know I also did have to go to my branch head and express interest as well. So if you are in that pathway eventually, definitely do sell yourself in terms of make it clear what you're willing to do for the job. Not just your academics, not just your credentials, but okay, like what are you willing to contribute?
Thank you, Dylan. One more question for all of you. So, first of all, I've heard a few common things in your responses. You are part of a very large organization, basically the largest, most powerful Navy in the history of humankind. And first of all, that's gotta make you proud to begin with. But you kept on talking about the mission. And so I would like to ask each one of you, how important is the mission, and how much the mission gives purpose and maybe even meaning to your careers? Thank you.
I love this question. I love talking about this question because what we do directly impacts our sailors, our warfighter, our national security, our safety, our freedom. And when I started out in the manufacturing department, working on those CADs, on those ejection seats, periodically we would have those fighter pilots that safely ejected wherever in the world come back to Indian Head just to place a face to who made this life-saving device and say thank you for allowing me to return back home, allowing me to return back to my family. And so, as a young engineer, just to have that full circle moment, it really just sticks with you for the rest of your career as to why you come every day and why you try your best to put out the best product, the safest product, the most accurate product, because it actually directly affects how our sailors work and survive and fight for this country.
Yeah, definitely the mission and the needs of our fleet, our sailors, definitely play a huge role in what we do, how we do it. Definitely, you want to make sure everything's done the correct way. You want to make sure the fleet get exactly what they need in the time they need it, right? So I mean, especially when we're made aware of how urgently something is needed and the impact on it, we do everything we can to make sure that gets prioritized, should I say. So I think the national security thing is definitely, at least for me, something I think about strongly. Like we as a country have so much to thank for all of our armed forces and in the security and the freedom that we have in this country. And especially coming to this country from my family, I feel like that is the best way I can pay back, is by supporting with the work that we do, from our minds, just working together to create safety, security for this nation. Thank you.
The mission is the overarching mission that that is all of our jobs. It gives such great purpose to you every day. You wake up with this overarching purpose, and it just makes you want to do better and be better. When you watch the news or you see some, like sad things going on, you think, oh, what can I do? And my answer now I can say is, well, I can go and I could do my job. And that is so powerful. And I think that is just such a huge motivator for me. Two of my favorite dudes in the whole world, my dad and my husband, both vets. And so when I'm doing my job, I think about how it helps secure the safety of all of our sailors around the world. And I see, my dad and my husband that is a representative of that. And I see those guys on the ship as part of my family too. And it just gives you this really great purpose and makes it easy to get out of bed every day to go do your job.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I feel is always really, they try to hit home every time, is that our mission affects the warfighter. Our mission, we want to support our national defense apparatus, and we have all of our work has a real world effect. And it's one of those things you look, you turn on the news or you read about, and you really just want to, you feel like you're making a difference in some way when you're supporting this mission. And it's, to some degree too, I have friends who work in other industries, and it's one of the things that they're envious of, because they feel like, yes, they can align with their company's mission, but they want to have more of that impact, like sometimes we feel we have.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'll hand it back to Edward. Eduardo, see if he has any other questions.
Thank you so much for those answers. I got one last question again from Urani, and she's asking, I guess, she says, could we see one of the elements or objects that you have helped created to maintain safe the Navy? I guess if you can share anything that you have worked on within the realms of what you can share, obviously, we understand that. Any program or any particular thing that you are working or you have worked on that you can share with our audience, that how that your work is so important, and I thank you for that. But anything that you can share about any of those things? Thank you.
Okay, so I won't talk specifically about my role in the Navy, but I'll talk about one of the my past role at Aberdeen Test Center. Aberdeen tests everything the soldier can use or wear. And one of the things that, not even just use or wear, but also ride in. So it's very important when you're doing all this testing to ensure that, the warfighter will come home safe. And when they need to use things or they need to be protected, it works every time. So yeah.
So the picture that we have up right now, I'm pretty sure that's of ARD, right? That our Idaho detachment. So I've done some testing at that lake there. And in a previous slide, there was the Twisted Bicone Array. It's this huge array with hundreds of sensors. And I work on a software that monitors the sensors in that array.
Just to keep it very general, yeah, in my position, being the engineering manager for ball bearings, for anti-friction bearings, essentially, yeah, ball bearings specifically, I would say have a huge part. And basically, the best way I can try to explain it is, like, if it rotates, it probably has a bearing in it. So anything that rotates on a ship, it's we want to make sure that good parts, safe parts get their way to the fleet. So that's the impact.
If it goes boom, Indian Head has his name on it.
Since it's, I have a perspective. I've got more years than some of these folks here, so I'll bring up some ancient history here. And I think it's a little bit forgotten because it was about a year before the tragic attack on the World Trade Center at the Pentagon that we all know about. These folks were very young. I was working, but about a year and a half before that, and there was the attack on the destroyer of the USS Cole in the Middle East. And you guys can look it up. Everyone knows how to use Wikipedia and AI if you haven't heard of this. But the USS Cole was attacked by a small boat, and it almost sunk the ship. A hole was blown in the side of the ship. A number of sailors lost their lives. I should actually know that number, but I don't. So it was a destroyer. So key things that were an issue with that. The one I would think, well, there's a hole in the side of the ship. You do not want that ship to sink. Experts in that ship are the people at Carter Rock, the structures, the material, how it responds. On that ship, one of the bigger issues within that was there are explosive materials, there are missiles, there are things. Who are the experts in those materials that are called immediately for that? They're at the Indian Head Division. There's electrical systems and radars and missile systems and like that. Who's the experts on that? Dahlgren Division. Another key one who's not here, that's not part of our local, there's a machinery division that's responsible for the engines, and all the engines and the power fail on that ship. They're in Philadelphia. Great folks that I work with very much in Philadelphia. They had to make sure that those systems come online to keep that and keep literally more people from dying. So all of these together were called up immediately to handle that. And unfortunately, we're in a world where that could happen again. And these people across these divisions do that work. So that's what will happen if we need it in any of our systems within the Navy.
Thank you, John, and thanks again to all of you. Thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much for taking the time of your day to come and share your experiences and being very honest with some of our audience. Couple of things. First of all, this session is being recorded and it will be posted on the Ignite Hub's YouTube channel. I will send you the link and you can share with you guys. Also, a copy of this presentation and the previous presentation will be sent to anybody that registered to attend this event, either virtually or in person. Yes, thank you, Anthony. On behalf of the Ignite Hub, our director, Kimberly Blockring-Kang, which couldn't be here today, unfortunately, I am Eduardo Novoa, Technical Training and Development Coordinator, and my colleague, Anthony Fiora, the Lab Coordinator. We thank you for coming today, for sharing your experiences. We really appreciate it. Also for the people who attended in person and online. Anthony has put on the screens for everybody that attended this event is a survey. We ask you that you take a couple of minutes to fill it up. It's very important to us. We do take a look at these results. This helps us continue providing the programming that you guys want. I think this is a tremendous resource, what all the presentations that we have had with John and all the folks from the Navy labs in the area. We really appreciate that, the great opportunities that they present for everybody here. And so please take a look at these, fill out that survey. I am also going to put the link on the chat if it is easier for you. And thank you so much. Before we leave, I would just like to present our speakers with a small token of the appreciation. So hopefully you'll remember our visit to the hub and you visit us again. So thank you so much for everyone for attending. And thank you, John, and everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon and a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.